In this video I will talk about my empirical self, because I have several levels of self. In some of my videos I am inspired, and in some others I am just me, this empirical individual. But the more I understand Hegel, the more I understand myself as a empirical individual, and I lost myself in the mind of Hegel. That's a way of expressing where I'm at now. And I will illustrate by telling my personal stories, but I've already said this in many videos. But between 2009, when I was 17, and 2019, I have lived trapped in my apartment, basically, because I was afraid of going out because of my physical appearance. And between 2013 and 2019, so for 6 years, I have bought and read an enormous amount of books. And then I continued after 2019, but I have lived trapped in a library. And I have accumulated, in a kind of chaotic fashion, but an enormous amount of knowledge. I have not the mind of a scholar. I have not a structured and academic mind, but I have a broad view of most topics of human inquiry, and I unconsciously expect every thinking person, at least in the West, where the economic conditions are relatively prosperous, to be a living encyclopedia. I don't expect them to do so, but unconsciously that's what I expect. And when I realize that it's not the case, I blame myself for being so dumb and so disconnected, because I remember a few years ago, I asked myself, but if I went to Germany and if I talked to the average German person in the street, he knows about the history of the Romantic era in Germany and German idealism, right? He knows about Schelling, Fichte, Novalis, Hegel, Kant. We can have a discussion, not in German because I do not speak German very well, but in English or in French or whatever. We can speak about the history of this era. But then I realized, no, the average German person doesn't know the history of philosophy, probably doesn't know the history of its own country. I am completely disconnected, because I expect, it's not that I consciously does this, but I expect that every person who has gone through the educational system knows about the broad story that is told in the West: ancient Greece, Rome, the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, the 17th century, the Enlightenment, the 19th century, the 20th century, that they have a broad vision of Western history and its relationship with America, Africa, Asia, Australia. So a broad view of world history, that they can situate the great names of human history not in the exact decades, but at least in the proper century. But I realized that it's only for the privileged people who have the time, the leisure, and the money. But the ordinary person, they don't care about about all this. They just, like I said in a previous video, they just want to real life is already hard enough. They just want to have a good life, which means job, money, romance, children, leisure, whatever, friends. They don't care about possessing absolute knowing. I do not, I never said to myself consciously, I want to possess absolute knowing, but empirically, I discovered that one cannot understand one part of reality without understanding another and another and another, and eventually you gotta have the full picture if you want to understand any topic. And in the month of April, May, June of 2018, when I started to be inspired, that's when I don't know who is the I who was inspired. Maybe not my empirical self. I deluded myself probably, but when I discovered whatever cultural Hegelianism, I was mesmerized, fascinated, hypnotized by Hegel that I had just discovered a couple of months earlier, because I did not understand anything. I did not understand everything about his writings, but I was starting to buy the complete works. I spent tremendous amount of money just to buy the complete works of Hegel. But I was spontaneously thinking like Hegel without the conceptual luggage, so to speak, the conceptual arsenal, without the vocabulary, the terminology, the rigor, the depth, the seriousness, German seriousness. But I thought broadly like Hegel, and I will just give an example. I used to use the sentence, one cannot understand anything if one doesn't understand everything. It works in English, not in some other language. They did that because everything or anything is interconnected with the totality of everything else, the totality of world history and physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, anthropology, etc., etc. And eventually, when you understand this, you understand, but what is a thing? And then you go back to metaphysics and ontology and logic, etc. So I didn't need Hegel to understand this, that one object, one thing can only be properly understood if it is recontextualized within the totality of being. Now, many years later, I could express this in a more rigorous and systematic and conceptual way. But, yeah. My relationship to Hegel is simply that I was unconsciously seeking a father figure, and I have admired Hegel like a child admires his father, or a teenager admires his hero. That's dumb psychology, basically. Yeah. So when I have conversations with ordinary people, and not just a conversation between Hegel's books and my own mind, I don't know how to express this. They don't care about what I have to say, because who cares about the debates between the transcendental logic of Kant and Hegel's reworking of the categories. For the ordinary person, it is so far removed from their ordinary problems. They think that philosophy is just armchair theorizing nonsense, a waste of time. And I understand broadly the minds of people like Zizek and Peterson. I can broadly read their mind. But if you ask me to understand the life of a peasant in Western Europe, but even let alone in Africa or Indonesia or whatever, if he asks me, but what can your philosophy do for my crops? There hasn't been enough rain or enough sunshine, and my family is starving. And what would I say to him? My German idealist perspective I'm not sure that it might be of a great help. So I am disconnected from ordinary reality. That's what I suffer from. That's why I don't enjoy this idea, but I have to experience pain to wake myself up, to come back to the senses, as the expression goes, because I know intellectual torment, because German philosophy is very tormented, but I do not know physical torment. I have experienced partly, but that's not enough. And I need to come back to reality, snap back to reality. There's gravity, as the song says. So I will continue to produce. I try to produce rigorous content, unlike this video, to comment Hegel as long as I think it's necessary, to make things intelligible to as wide an audience as possible. But yeah, I lost myself in Hegel. That's the story of my life, whoever or whatever I am. I got lost in Hegel, and that's a dangerous and frightening place to lose oneself, I guess.